Welcome to the channel, you who are passionate about inspiring and captivating stories just like us. Subscribe, it would make us very happy. Here is an exciting news story for you. In a bustling African city, where the scents of spices mixed with the heat of the sun, Adele lived a modest but peaceful life. Every morning, the streets of her neighborhood came alive. Vendors shouted their prices, taxi horns honked, and the laughter of children playing ball echoed through the air. Adele, a young woman with a bright smile and a dreamy gaze, made her way through this lively scene to the small bookstore where she worked. She was a woman full of gentleness, known for her kindness and her ability to brighten the day of anyone who crossed her path. Her parents, humble artisans, had instilled in her simple yet profound values: respect, honesty, and the hope for a better future. But Adele carried within her a secret dream: to build a life full of love and happiness, despite the challenges of her environment. Every morning, she stopped at the same cafe to buy a cup of black tea. It was there that she first noticed Mr. Joel. Tall, imposing, and always impeccably dressed, he exuded an aura that attracted attention and sparked whispers.
"He's so arrogant," some would say.
"A dangerous man," others would whisper. But for Adele, he was fascinating. When he entered the cafe, the surrounding noise seemed to fade, as if his imposing presence dominated the space. She couldn't help but blush every time their eyes met, though Joel, most of the time, seemed not to notice her. One day, as a torrential rain poured down on the city, fate decided to intertwine their paths. Adele, sheltered by an umbrella, was walking quickly home when she saw Joel, standing beside his car. A flat tire left him perplexed under the downpour. "Excuse me, miss," he said, turning to her. "Do you know where I can find a mechanic?" Surprised that he was speaking to her, Adele felt her heart race. She stammered slightly, but eventually pointed him to a workshop not far away. "Thank you," he replied with a rare smile, which seemed to brighten the gray of that rainy day. This encounter became the first step in an unexpected bond. Joel, intrigued by Adele's simplicity and sweetness, began to visit the bookstore where she worked, buying books that he seemed to choose at random. Each visit was marked by brief but memorable exchanges, and Adele, despite herself, found herself falling more and more for this mysterious man. One evening, as they talked in front of the closed bookstore, Joel looked at her intently and said, "You're different, Adele. Not like the other women I know. Your kindness, it's refreshing." These words resonated deeply within her. Slowly, a relationship began to form between them, made up of stolen moments and silent hopes. Despite her friends' warnings and the persistent rumors about Joel's character, Adele clung to the belief that she saw something in him that no one else did. When Joel proposed to her after several months, she accepted without hesitation, convinced that her love would be the key to revealing the good man hidden inside him. Their wedding was a radiant celebration. Adele, in a simple but elegant white dress, was the very definition of happiness. Joel, in his impeccable suit, charmed all the guests. That day, Adele made a silent promise. "I will change him. My love will transform his heart. Together, we will build a life full of joy." But beneath the shine of smiles and dancing, the beginnings of a fragile dream were taking shape. bearing a destiny that Adele could not yet foresee. The first months after their marriage, Adele clung to her dreams, convinced that she would eventually break through Joel's armor. She often waited for him in the evenings, a shy smile on her lips, hoping he would come home with a bouquet or at least a sweet word. But Joel returned late, always tired, sometimes irritated. "Why do you insist on waiting for me? You'd be better off sleeping," he would say coldly as he hung up his coat. "I thought we could talk for a bit, like we used to," Adele would reply, her voice trembling. He wouldn't respond, locking himself in his office or collapsing onto the couch, his eyes fixed on his phone. The nights became heavy with silence, and the days were internal battles for Adele. She still believed he would change, but deep down, a small voice whispered that she was fighting the impossible. Years passed, and with them, Adele's illusions. The birth of their children could have been a glimmer of hope, but it turned out to be a cruel mirror reflecting their failure. Gene, the eldest, already resembled Joel. He was domineering, mocking, and seemed to take pleasure in tormenting his sister Dorothée. One day, as Dorothée cried silently after yet another taunt from her brothers, Adele raised her voice. "Jean, stop tormenting your sister. She hasn't done anything to deserve this." Jean shrugged, a sly smile on his face. "But Mom, she's so weak. It's like she loves crying." Robert burst out laughing, adding, "It's true, Mom, look at her. She's always complaining. Maybe we should make her stronger, huh?" Adele, exhausted, collapsed into a chair, unable to respond. She knew that these behaviors were the reflection of the years of coldness and distance imposed by Joel. Even worse, she saw in her sons the mirror of what she had become. Yet Dorothée remained different. Gentle, helpful, and full of hope, she illuminated the rare moments of tenderness that still existed. Every morning, she prepared breakfast for the family, even placing a cup of coffee in front of her father, who would only give her a brief glance as a thank you. "Thank you, Dad," she would whisper with a smile, even though she knew he wouldn't respond. But this kindness made her a target. Her brothers would push her, steal her things, and laugh at her tears. One evening, as she collapsed in her room after an argument, Adele entered. "Dorothée, you need to be stronger. You can't let them walk all over you like this." "But Mom, why don't you stop them? Why don't you do anything?" the young girl sobbed. These words pierced Adele. She had no answer. How could she defend her daughter when she herself had yielded to bitterness and hardness? Years passed, and the house became a theater of constant conflicts. Joel, still authoritarian, saw his sons as his heirs, his perfect reflections. Dorothée, on the other hand, tried to stay away, seeking refuge in her studies and books. One night, as Adele sat alone in the living room, she overheard a conversation between Joel and Jean. "Dad, why do we still keep Dorothée here? She's useless." Joel, without a glance at Adele, who was listening from the shadows, replied harshly, "She'll leave one day. We don't keep the weak around." These words shook Adele. She remembered the dream she had nurtured, the one to transform her husband into a good man. But in that moment, she understood that the dream had reversed. It was Joel who had transformed her, making her into a distant and unrecognizable woman. And amid this storm, Dorothée still shone, fragile but determined, ready to fight for a better future, even if her family seemed intent on extinguishing her light. Years had passed, marked by arguments, silences, and a home where love seemed to have deserted. Dorothée, the youngest with a tender heart, had grown up in the midst of this chaos, surrounded by the harshness of her parents and the cruelty of her brothers. Yet, despite the trials, she carried within her a light that nothing seemed able to extinguish. "You'll never get anywhere with that stupid softness," Jean, her older brother, would often mockingly tell her. "Life is for the strong. Look at us. We never let anyone walk all over us," Robert would add with a satisfied smile.
Dorothée didn't respond.
She simply looked away, her eyes fixed on her books, her precious treasures that represented her only escape. Her studies became her refuge, her way of rising above the darkness of her home. But her path was filled with obstacles. Her parents, under the influence of their coldness and contempt for what they saw as their daughter's weakness, refused to fund her education. "Why should I waste money on you?" Joel asked her one day in a chilling tone. "You're a dreamer. The world doesn't reward dreamers. If you want to succeed, figure it out yourself." These words, as cruel as they were, didn't bring Dorothée down. On the contrary, they strengthened her resolve. Every evening, after long days at university, she took on small jobs to support herself. She cleaned offices, worked in restaurants, and mended clothes for the neighbors. One evening, while folding towels in a crowded restaurant, a colleague asked her, "Why do you tire yourself out so much, Dorothée? Why don't you just give up?" Dorothée, wiping a strand of hair from her forehead, gently replied, "Because I want to be free, free to choose my life." Far from all of this, this conviction guided her through the darkest moments. While her brothers, adored by their parents, lived in carefree ease, Dorothée was climbing the ladder of her own future, slowly but surely. Years went by. Her efforts finally paid off. Dorothée earned a degree in financial management, and shortly after, she landed a position at a prestigious bank in the city. The day she walked into the institution for her first day of work, dressed in an elegant suit, she paused for a moment in front of the large glass doors. Her reflection returned the image of a strong, determined woman, resolutely different from the fragile girl she had once been. Still, the wounds of the past lingered. Her family, especially her parents, showed no interest in her success. One day, she visited them, hoping to share some good news, only to be met with a cold reception. "Are you here to brag?" Joel asked, not even lifting his eyes from his newspaper.
"No, Dad."
"I just wanted to. We don't need your stories. Your brothers, they know what really matters in life." These words shattered her heart, but Dorothée stood firm. She realized that day that she should expect nothing from them. She promised herself never to let their cruelty define her life. Meanwhile, Jean and Robert sank deeper into an easy life. Instead of building a future, they reveled in their parents' wealth, living in carefreeness and arrogance. Jean, especially, strutted around the neighborhood, spending without a care and mocking those like Dorothée, who worked hard. "You're wasting your time, Dorothée," Robert once said, crossing her path in the street. "Look at us. We have everything without lifting a finger." Dorothée calmly responded, "You may have everything, but I've built something real. And no one can take that from me." While her brothers lost themselves in idleness, Dorothée continued to shine. Her success, well-earned and hard-won, was proof that an indomitable soul could rise, even in the darkest of circumstances. Here we have come to the end of the first part of this fascinating story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video and share it. Don't miss the continuation of this story in the coming days by subscribing to the channel.